today there was a hearing in Congress where a few sanctuary city mayors were dragged in front of the committee to answer to their policies. Unfortunately, the mayor of Seattle wasn't one of them, but the mayor of Boston, Chicago, Denver, and New York were all there. So we're going to play some cuts from that conversation because the entire thing's very relevant to what we're dealing with here on the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, our sanctuary policies, which have been in place for some time, and how they are now in conflict with what the Trump administration is trying to carry out. And I will say, I don't know if you've heard this yet, but Seattle has joined a lawsuit with now 16 cities and counties that are sanctuary jurisdictions. It was started and is being led by Santa Clara County in California and San Francisco. And their argument is basically that Donald Trump wants them to do his job, essentially, which I disagree with. I'll describe that in a moment. But from the lawsuit, plaintiffs are not going to stand in the way of lawful federal immigration enforcement, but neither are they going to be bullied into abandoning their laws that have made their communities safer. Okay. Or doing what the federal government cannot compel them to do, actively assist the federal government in enforcing federal immigration laws. This from Seattle City Attorney Ann Davison, who is a Republican. I know she hasn't been a Republican for very long, but she won her seat as a member of the Republican Party. And I will say personally, I'm very disappointed to see her supporting this lawsuit and adding Seattle's name to the list of entities suing the federal government. She said in a statement, this is an issue of federal overreach into areas of local control. Seattle's municipal government will not be co-opted to perform the federal government's responsibilities to enforce federal immigration laws. Here's the thing, though, and I think that I'm not saying that they maybe misunderstand how sanctuary policies actively do thwart federal immigration efforts, lawful federal immigration efforts. I think some of them understand that it does, and that's why they implemented sanctuary policies to begin with. But, you look at, before I get to that and sort of my legal argument against what these cities and counties are claiming, look at what's been happening on the streets of Seattle and across Washington state with ICE. I mean, we have highlighted a number of arrests that ICE has made in and around Seattle of illegal aliens guilty of child rape, assault, domestic violence, drug dealing, resisting arrest, theft, etc., etc., etc. I mean, these are bad dudes. I have yet to see the dramatic video of ICE operating in Seattle, going door to door, rounding up people who are in the country illegally but who haven't committed crime since they've been here. I haven't seen that video yet. What I have seen are many, many instances of ICE Seattle, its partners with Customs and Border Protection, DEA, going around and rounding up people who are hurting citizens of the state of Washington. And so when I see, I just pulled up a couple from today because there's more. It's every day ICE is putting out stuff. How about Alonzo Lopez Mundo, citizen of Mexico, just arrested by ICE Seattle and U.S. Customs and Border Protection, convicted of assault, kidnapping, arrested for burglary, and fraud. Is that really so bothersome to Democrats that we're getting kidnappers out of the state of Washington? How about this one? Blaine sector agents assisted ICE in arresting Antonio Santiago Vasquez near Linden, Washington, a citizen of Mexico. He has multiple deportations and was previously arrested in Whatcom County for stabbing 4 people. Again, is that really so bothersome to Democrats? And is it really so much trouble to expect that local law enforcement, where federal immigration officials are trying to carry out these arrests, assist in any way they can? There's this odd separation going on before I get to some of what happened at the hearing. There's like a disconnect going on where these sanctuary cities believe that, hey, we're not going to thwart efforts. That's what Ann Davison said, right? That we're not going to be co-opted to perform the federal government's responsibilities. And in that lawsuit, it said plaintiffs are not going to stand in the way of federal immigration enforcement, but we're also not going to be bullied into abandoning our sanctuary laws. But by having sanctuary laws, you are in fact standing in the way of lawful federal immigration enforcement. and we'll hear some of this come up and be questioned about at the hearing today, but some of these sanctuary laws that explicitly prohibit the ability of local jurisdictions, local jails, local law enforcement, sheriff's offices to work with ICE makes it more difficult for ICE to do its job. I mean, that's the intent of them, right? And now that you're saying, oh, no, we're not interfering, we're just not going to help you out. Not helping them out is interfering. When you have a violent, dangerous, convicted criminal who's in the country illegally, and you won't hold that person at the jail or let ICE know, hey, here's when they're going to be released and give them ample notice to scoop them up without incident, that's actively hurting the ability of ICE and the federal government to carry out its lawful immigration efforts. When you scrub all your databases so there's no telling if someone's in the country illegally or not, and for all intents and purposes they're an American citizen, that thwarts the ability of ICE to know. You know, if there's a story on the news, for instance, of someone who, I don't know, stabbed 4 people, it should always be very obvious. This person's in the country illegally. We request that they're held without bail. And a judge could look at that and say, man, there's a likelihood that they might flee justice and go back to Mexico or to their country of origin because they're facing serious charges. But because of our system, it's not even listed there for the judge to see. The judge doesn't even know that that person is in the country illegally and therefore can't even weigh that in determining whether they should be held without bail or at a higher bail. So you tell me that's not you standing in the way of lawful federal immigration enforcement? There's also this weird disconnect, and I'll get to it here in a second with a clip from the mayor of Chicago, where these sanctuary jurisdictions believe that, we're focusing on local law enforcement efforts. The feds are responsible for federal law enforcement efforts. So they're just doing their thing, and we're staying in our lane, and we're doing our thing, and we're enforcing our laws on the ground and arresting people. You don't think that there's overlap there? You don't think that illegal aliens, criminal illegal aliens, are directly related to your efforts, quote unquote, as soft as they may be, to keep your own streets and neighborhoods safe? I mean, just some of the ones we listed. Multiple people who were distributing narcotics. Fentanyl's killing people in record numbers on our streets. Don't you think helping ICE out with that, directly helps your public safety efforts here? Someone who stabbed 4 people. Gee, don't you think that getting that person off the streets directly helps your public safety efforts here? Not to mention makes the job of law enforcement much safer, considering that a lot of these people who've been picked up by ICE have been arrested for eluding law enforcement, have been arrested for assaulting law enforcement, for resisting arrest. The feds are doing your law enforcement agencies like the Seattle Police Department a favor by getting people who assault cops off the streets. And you guys are turning around and saying, we can't help you with that. In what world does that make sense? They want to conflate all of this as if they help ICE get these dangerous people off the streets or hold them in jail and cooperate and hand them over, that it's the same as helping them go and round up children and families? It's nuts. So that takes me to this hearing in front of Congress today. May I just say, so again, this is a critical issue no matter which way you slice it. If the Democrats at this hearing want to talk about this from a humanitarian perspective and want to lean in on the whole, there's a lot of immigrants here who are vital to our economy. Yeah, they came here illegally, but they're not committing crimes. They're paying taxes. That's kind of what I'd expect Democrats to do in this hearing. I got to say, what I didn't expect for Democrats to do is to use a hearing on sanctuary policies to talk about the high cost of eggs under Donald Trump.
President Trump, if you're watching this hearing, I respectfully ask, when will egg costs be high enough for you to issue one executive order on bird flu? $10 a carton, $15 a carton. It'll soon be cheaper to buy a magazine for an AK-47 than to buy breakfast. This is flat out wrong.
During a congressional hearing on sanctuary cities, uses this time to talk about the high cost of eggs under Donald Trump. I mean, they're just unserious. This is a life or death issue. And they also want us to believe that it's like the humanitarian issue of our lifetimes, right? But he's talking about the cost of eggs. It's very strange. So also, one of the mayors in front of this committee was Chicago's mayor, Brandon Johnson. And this is just rich. Again, this goes to that, they're trying to bifurcate it. Oh, well, the feds are doing what the feds need to do. We're focused on local public safety. And here's what Brandon Johnson, like the murder capital of the world or of the country, has to say about that.
Without a criminal warrant, our local law enforcement focuses in on local issues to keep the people of Chicago safe.
How's that going? How's that going? Not well. I would also say, if you're focusing in on local issues and your concern is to keep the people of Chicago safe, then don't you think that you'd actively help the federal government in getting people who are a clear and present danger to the people of Chicago off the streets? So you'll help arrest criminals who are American citizens to help keep people safe. But you won't help arrest criminals who happen to be illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, to help keep the people of Chicago safe? That doesn't make any sense. And also, you're just doing a crap job. If you look at your gang issue, you know that you're doing a crap job when it comes to keeping anyone safe in your city. So I want to play for you a pretty lengthy exchange. Representative Jim Jordan is having this exchange with Denver Mayor Mike Johnston over a recent issue. And I want to play the whole thing for you because it's really important and it's relevant to what we're talking about here. When a city like Seattle and Seattle City Attorney Ann Davison says, hey, we're staying in our lane, you stay in your lane, and we're not thwarting their efforts. We're just not going to actively assist in the efforts. This exchange really shows how the failure to actively assist is in fact thwarting the efforts of ICE in making these sanctuary communities less safe.
Mayor Johnston, who's Abraham Gonzalez?
Thank you, Congressman. He is a individual that was released from the county jail on Friday in the city and county of Denver.
That's all you know about him?
I do know that he was facing charges that the
Venezuelan gang member arrested by Border Patrol on September 20th, 2023, released into the country by the Biden administration. A few months later, he's arrested in your city, charged with aggravated assault. On March 11th, 2024, he's charged with motor vehicle theft, stole a car, and then on March 20th, 2024, Mr. Gonzalez is charged with felony menacing. 6 days after that last charge, ICE sends you a detainer, which includes an administrative warrant. Basically, it says if you're going to release this bad guy, this gang member who allegedly stole a car, menaced people, and assaulted people, give us a 48-hour heads up. Is that right? Does that refresh your memory?
I do know about the detainer request. I do know that we provided a notification of release.
What kind of notice did you give ICE when you released him?
We gave him notification. I'm not sure how long in advance it
1 hour.
was. I do know that.
1 hour.
I do know that there were
1 hour notice, and you released him 5 days ago, right? Why not give him more heads up? Actually, let's put the slide up. Let's see what it says here. Let's put the slide up. This is what the Denver Sheriff's Department, it's kind of hard to see, so I'll read it. It says, Denver Sheriff Department, ICE notification being released to the streets. I simply said, just release him to us. You release him to the streets. Why not release him to ICE?
Thank you. What we've done, and we do this regularly, we've done 1,226 of these, is we notify
I'm
ICE.
asking about one. I'm not asking about the other 1,200. I'm asking about Mr. Abraham Gonzalez, who's a gang member from Venezuela, stole a car, assaulted someone. You had him in your custody for how long?
I know that we released him.
345 days you had him in custody. And I said, hey, can you give us 48 hours heads up?
I don't know.
You gave him 1 hour notice.
Mr. Congressman, we notified them of release. There were 6 ICE agents present when he was released, so they had enough time to respond and to be present.
Respond where?
To the jail where we released him from. So we released him we notified them of the release time. When we notify them of release, they come to the jail facility to pick them up.
Why didn't you say that's not what you said. You said you released him to the streets. Did you release him to the streets? You release him to ICE?
What we do, sir, is we release him from our county jail, and we coordinate with ICE on that release time and release date so that ICE can come and pick them up from that location.
Pick them up where? In the parking lot?
Yes, sir. They're on the facility property.
Guess what happened in the parking lot?
I know, sir. I've reviewed the video. So I looked at it. I've talked to the sheriff last night.
One of the ICE officers got assaulted, didn't he?
I've reviewed the video,
They had
sir.
to tase the guy, didn't they?
Would you like me to answer, sir?
No, I'd like you to answer. Did they tase him?
I know that there were 6 officers that had multiple tasers. I saw the
So they
detention
had
on
6
video.
officers. If you keep him in the facility and they come in the facility and get him, does it take 6 officers? Probably takes 2, doesn't it?
So we've been doing these, as I mentioned, 1,226 times. This is the first time I've been made aware of there's been an incident like this. So I reached out to ICE after I saw the video. I've coordinated with their team and offered to sit down and see if there are procedures we can change.
It's a simple
make sure
question.
this works smoothly.
It's a simple question. You can release him in the parking lot, give ICE 1 hour notice, and they got to send 6 officers to arrest this guy. Or you can say, hey, what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold him. You come in and bring 2 officers in, and you turn him over there. Why not do it that way?
We have a city ordinance.
You know why you don't do it that way?
We have a city ordinance that governs.
Because you're a sanctuary city. This is the whole point.
Exactly. So you take a situation and you put all these people in danger to push your ideology. So you've got a guy, known criminal, in the country illegally. ICE finds out he's in your jail. He's there for a year. And you give them 1 hour notice before you release him onto the streets, as it says in his release file. So that ICE officers have to get 6 people, go to the parking lot, make sure that they intercede him, and then there's a fight and one of the officers gets injured and the guy has to get tased. Because of the sanctuary policies and the ideology of Colorado, where they can't separate a situation like that from police going door to door, pulling people over for expired tabs and asking them about their immigration status. So you won't let ICE take him into custody in the secure facility where the situation can be under control, where it's safer for the officers, where it's safer for the community, and where it's safer for the illegal alien. Because now he got tased a bunch of times, and he assaulted an officer in the process, and what if he had gotten away? And then you have a manhunt on the streets of Denver because you are obsessed with this far-left ideology that doesn't make any sense, and you refuse to use any nuance when it comes to the situation. And that is the perfect example of how a city like Seattle isn't so innocent when it joins this lawsuit challenging Donald Trump's, threats to go after federal funding and stuff, and says, hey, we're not thwarting anyone. We're just not going to actively assist. When you don't actively assist, you are, in fact, thwarting, making more difficult, making more dangerous the job of these federal immigration agents. Shame on you, especially considering, I'm disappointed in Ann Davison for this. I know she's the attorney for the city. I know that it's a sanctuary city. I know she has a certain obligation to protect laws and ordinances in the city of Seattle. But when she was elected, she was a pro-public safety, law and order kind of person. I still want to believe that she's that person. But if you can't see that what ICE is doing at great personal risk to the agents in picking up child rapists, people who assault police officers, kidnappers, a guy who stabbed 4 people. If you can't see that that's an overall public safety good and do everything you can within reason to assist ICE in those efforts, that's not someone who values public safety and law and order. And it's just, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that and comparing it to, again, the purpose, we're told, of sanctuary policies is, we want illegal immigrants to be able to call 911 and report crimes without fear that they might be deported. Or, we don't want the Seattle Police Department out there stopping people who with brown skin on the streets and asking them to show their papers. There's a lot of gray area between doing that and assisting federal agents in apprehending violent criminals who are in this country illegally. So I suggest you find a better place to sit in that gray area than where you're sitting right now.